Well, hello there. The purpose of this video is to provide additional explanation for your methods section, which is due at the end of this week. This is a main part of your final project. After you submit the methods section over the next few days, I will take a look at it and give you feedback so that you can make the necessary corrections before you include it ultimately in your final project. I've uploaded a number of resources to Blackboard in order to help you through this process, including a rubric showing you exactly how the assignment will be graded and what you need to do in order to get full credit. Another list of the survey items. This is the same as the list you saw in week 1. We have that listed out for you as well here. Of course, the survey data that you'll be working with in SPSS format, which I have open over here. And finally, an example of an exemplary method section. And I'll walk through this with you as well so you can see exactly what we're going to be looking for. Let's go ahead and start. Let's take a look at the example. Why don't we start there? So method section is the second main part of an empirical article, the first part being the introduction. So the paper starts with the introduction. You wrote this last week, and you present the problem and your hypotheses. You go through the literature and your literature review, building up to your hypotheses, and that transitions into the second part of your empirical article, which is the method section. Method would be a level 1 heading. This denotes that it is a major part of the paper after the introduction. And then we have a level 2 headings over here on the side, which are participants, measures, and procedure. So these are the three main parts of the method section that you will need to include. And we have listed on the rubric exactly what we'll be looking for in each of these sections. So participants, measures. There's two different rows for measures because we'll be looking for a lot in this section. This is the will be the biggest part of this section, and then the procedures down here. Okay, well, let's take a look. So method section is a level 1 heading. Participants is a level 2 heading. And in this paragraph, you're going to describe the participants. Describe your participants. If you look at the rubric, you'll see exactly what this description needs to include. Sample size, gender, that includes the percentage male and female, the age range, okay, the ages, so that includes the range of the ages and the standard deviation of the ages, and a detailed description of the school. Okay, now one of the most common questions I'll get from students is, well, where do I find this information? How do I know the sample size, the male-female percentage, the ages, and description of the school, and so forth? So in the example I gave you, this information is not the same as the information you have. This is from a different study. So this shows you how it would be written out, what that would look like, the way it'd be presented, but do not copy this information. This says there's 126 6th and 7th grade students, boys and girls. You have a different number of students. You have adult college students. So don't say boys and girls. That wouldn't be appropriate for people in their 30s. So where do we find this information that's being asked for here on the rubric? Well, you actually get that from the data set itself. So if you take a look at the data set, we have some demographic variables here. We have age, we have gender, we actually have ethnicity, religion, some of this other information here. So how would we get this into a usable format? What we'll do is we'll go to Analyze, Descriptive Statistics, and let's start with frequencies. Okay, so what we're going to do here, we're going to go over to frequencies and we'll click, let's do gender, and we'll click OK. And let's take a look at that. It looks like the gender is 87% female and 12% male. So that's how I'd find that information, right? So gender. What about the sample size? Skipped over that one. Go to your data view and just look. We have 101 people in our sample. What about the ages? We'll go to Analyze, Descriptive Statistics, Descriptives. We'll go to Age, and then Options. Well, what are they asking for? They want the range. I'm sorry, the range, the minimum, the maximum, and we want the standard deviation and the mean. So mean, standard deviation, minimum, maximum. Let's see here. Just like that. So we click Continue and OK. And it looks like the ages range from 18 to 54. The mean is 28.29. The standard deviation is 7.41. And of course, again, the sample size is 101. What about the description of the school? Well, these data were collected at our school, California Baptist University, within the Division of Online and Professional Studies. So you should probably know a little bit about our school off the top of your head, but certainly feel free to Google that for additional specifics. Maybe the enrollment of the school. The denominational affiliation of the school, note that it's a private school, and maybe mention that these are online and professional studies students, that they are, many of them are not traditional students, that a lot of them are returning students. Okay, so we'd be looking for that. If you can include all that information formatted correctly in this section, you would get full credit for, and that's worth 15% of this grade. Okay, what else are we looking for? The measures section, descriptions and analyses. So let's take a look back at the example. I'll zoom in a little bit here. So first level 2 heading was participants. We've covered that. Down here to measures. This is the next level 2 heading. You have to include all 3 of your measures. So when you submitted your proposal, your research proposal a couple of weeks ago, you told me which 3 measures you were going to use in your study. The first measure was a categorical demographic variable, and it would have been either sex, ethnicity, religious preference, or born-again status. So you're going to put whichever one it was as the first variable in your measure subsection. So level 1 heading, level 2 heading, level 3 heading. So in this example, religious preference is the first variable that was used. It says respondents were asked to indicate the religious preference. Response options included. So you're going to list all of the response options and the percentage in each category. Okay. If you happen to use gender, and you've already mentioned the gender here, go ahead and mention it again. That way it's clear to the reader that this is one of your key variables in your study. So there'll be a little bit of redundancy. If you use any of the other 3, again, just list what the options are and the percentage in each category. How do you know the percentage in each category? Descriptive statistics, frequencies. Let's suppose it's ethnicity. We pop that over here, and it will tell you the percentage of each ethnicity right here in the table. Your second and your third variable came from the rest of the list of the survey items, and these are variables which you have to create from multiple survey items. So for example, altruism is the first one on the list. There are 10 different individual questions which have to be combined in order to get the altruism score that you'll be able to use in your analysis in the results section. So this part of the method section will mirror very closely your Lab 2 assignment where you created a composite score. So you got some practice doing that. So let's see what that's going to look like in this example. So we'll go back over here to the example paper. So in this case it was depression. And there's a paragraph here which provides a description of this variable. So if you take a look back at the rubric, we can see what is supposed to be included here. So all key variables are described in detail, including sample item and response options. At least one study is cited for each survey instrument used, providing internal reliability and validity evidence. Okay, so what does that mean? So here it says children's depression symptoms were measured using the Children's Suppression Inventory. So this is the variable, it's the construct, not the exact name of the instrument, but we do provide the exact name of the instrument and describe it. So in this case, it's a 6-item self-report measure of depressive symptomology in children. They respond to items indicating a depressed state. So here's an example of one of the items. I am often sad and then tell us how many points the scale has. In this case, a 3-point Likert type scale ranging from 1, not at all true, to 3, very true. Okay, so where do you get this information? This information is provided to you here on the list of survey items. So, for example, with altruism, we know it's a self-report scale of altruism. There are 10 items, and you would give an example. You would pick any of these to provide as an example. How many points does the scale have? Well, the response options are provided for you here. So very often, 1, often 2, more than once 3, once 4, never 5. So we have 5 response options. So we'd say it is a 5-point Likert type scale, ranging from 1, never, to 5, very often. Okay, so ranging from 1, in this case it would be never, to 5, very often. Okay, now what about the internal reliability and validity evidence? Okay, so you need to cite at least one other published study which has used your measure. Tell us what the internal reliability of the Chromebox Alpha was in that study. Sometimes there's a range. They might give you, maybe there's different samples and you would give us the range of alphas. And then the validity. So the validity, give us something that it predicted, something it was correlated with to show that there was some sort of meaning to this variable, to this instrument. It wasn't just something the authors dreamed up and hasn't been tested out at all. Okay, so where would we get that information from? Okay, well, at the bottom of each variable, I include a little note about an article where you can find out more. So here it says, see Rushton et al. 1981 for validity and reliability information. And next to reliability, I actually give you the precise page number where you can find the Chromebox alpha coefficient. So let's look at this example. So this is Altruism. So back on Blackboard, I included a folder called Instrumentation Articles. If you click on that and go inside the folder, you'll see an article for each of the instruments on the survey list. So the first one is Altruism. It's the Rushton et al. Article. We can click and open that up. The article looks like this. It's a little bit of an older article. So reliability evidence, according to the survey question sheet I gave you, it says it's in Table 2 on page 298. So let me find it again. We'll go to page 298. It's 296, 297, 298. Here's Table 2. We'll zoom in. Okay. So the reliability evidence, it's coefficient alpha, right? Chromebox alpha. And they have 5 samples. And here are the coefficients for each of these samples. The lowest one is 0.78. The highest one is 0.87. So you would say that in this study, the alphas ranged from 0.78 to 0.87. So this is on the high end of the acceptable range or the adequate range to the good range. So acceptable to good internal reliability. What about validity? Usually you can find that information in the abstracts. You're looking to see, does this correlate or relate to something else that shows that it's measuring what it's supposed to be measuring? So this is a self-report measure of altruism. I'm telling you that I do nice things. Well, it says that this altruism self-report instrument predicted peer ratings of altruism, completing an organ donor card, and paper and pencil measures of prosocial orientation. So in terms of validity, you would say it was correlated with peer ratings. So your friends say that you're nice, you say you're nice, sounds good, and completion of an organ donor card. So that would be the reliability and validity evidence that you would need to also cite in order to get full credit for this dimension. Notice this is worth 40% of the score. It's worth a lot. Some people get a little bit lazy. Maybe they're in a hurry and they rush past this and they'll get a really low score, possibly a failing grade on this assignment because they didn't include this key information. So slow down and make sure to include all this information. I've done most of the work for you. Next, the actual analyses. This is the part of the write-up that's going to be very similar to last week's lab, the week 2 lab. And let me go ahead and pause the video here. I'll come back and I'll wrap up and explain in detail what I want you to do here.